Today on Expedition Texas, a long-abandoned theater dating back to the early 1900s that offers a glimpse into its glorious past. Texas is full of lost history, from lost cemeteries to abandoned buildings, from the infamous to the obscure. My name is Bob Malden. I travel all over the state of Texas looking for hints of Texas' colorful past.
We're standing on sacred ground right here.
Our lost history. This is Expedition Texas, and we're going to find it. Paris, Texas stands the long-abandoned Grand Theater. The Grand was built in 1916 and hosted everything from vaudeville acts to early silent films. And the Grand made a lot of effort to stay up with the times, even splitting off into a multi-screen format. But in the early 1990s, when the big multiplex theater came to town, the Grand closed down for good.
There was a catastrophic fire in March of 1916 in Paris. The Grand Theater actually was in business before the fire. It was located very much where this one is. Immediately after the fire of 1916, they started on plans to replace this building. And apparently this was built in a big hurry because in December of that year, this was dedicated. A man who was probably Mr. Movie Theater in Paris was a guy named C.J. Claude Musselman. And Mr. Musselman was the head guy that ran this theater. It was built as a full vaudeville house. It has dressing rooms on the bottom. It had an orchestra pit. It had, of course, a Wurlitzer organ in it. This was a kind of a rather bland design inside. It was one of the teens theaters. And then, of course, in the 20s, the movie theaters became so wild and just wonderful and schmaltzy architecture. And about the time of the Texas Centennial, 1936-1937 era, Interstate Theaters decided that they were going to do a grand remodeling of the Grand Theater. That's when they came in here and they were improving the acoustics and making it more of a sound-friendly movie theater. They went to an Art Deco type styling and extensively painted this. And they had a big grand opening. This was a going place. There was an outfit called Duncan Theaters that bought this in the early 70s, and they put a wall on the balcony and then put a second projection room downstairs. Then they twinned it, and it operated fairly successfully in the 70s. But then when the new theater was built, that was pretty much the death knell, and there was very little maintenance put into this theater in the 70s, and that caught up with it, and they tried to do budget movies, and they just could not get an audience anymore. So the family that owned the company had the company that owned this just let it go and let the taxes begin to accrue on it.
Wow. All the old projection equipment is still
in here.
Still in here. We're in Paris, Texas to see the historic Grand Theater. Dating back to 1916, the Grand was the gold standard in early 20th century small-town entertainment. Our guide is local historian and theater expert Paul Denning. Hi,
Hey,
you Paul?
Yes, I am. Paul Denning.
Nice to meet you, Bob Malden.
Nice to meet you.
So we're here in Paris's Grand Theater. the original theater in Paris, right?
Yes.
And right now, if just standing in this room, it doesn't look like it was a theater.
No.
But you can tell this room is actually starting to be renovated. So there's a happy ending to the story
Yes.
of the Grand that we're going to get to here in a little bit. But tell me about this, what we just walked into here.
Well, this is what used to be the recessed porch of the theater. In the 30s on, it was a porcelain area that was had all kinds of panels and posters, and right over in that area was the box office, which was a little side box office that was really tiny.
Yeah.
But it was all porcelain and glass and chrome and all that.
Wow.
So anyway, you can see though the original terrazzo floor was from 1916. In the 30s, then they covered it with the really ornate carpet that they used to have in the 1930s, 40s theaters.
When we first walked in, I was a little concerned because all I saw was bare walls and concrete. But down toward the end of this big, long room was a door that led to what we really wanted to see.
Right. What I am hazy about, if you look on the floor, there's an odd pattern in the terrazzo. We think in the 1916 theater, this may have been the concession stand location.
I love the rounded walls. Would this be something that was added later?
Yes, that was done in the 1936, 1937 remodel. Now those are your box office ticket dispensers.
Okay. So
and we save them for the renovation.
Yeah. And what's this room here?
That is the added projection room that was done in the early 70s when the theater was twinned.
Okay, so this wouldn't have been here originally, but we do have, wow, all of the old projection equipment is still
It's still
in here. I've always wanted to see the movie projector. You get to see what's left of it anyway.
Yes. All right, now we're headed into the main auditorium. And right here is some of the 1937 remodeling.
The Grand was built in 1916, but in the 1930s, they came in and remodeled the entire place with this Art Deco style that included plaster and lots of paint.
Okay. But all of this was the plaster work done in the 30s. Then this is the edge of the balcony.
Originally, the Grand had a balcony and everything overlooked the one big stage. But when they did the remodel in the 1930s, they closed off the balcony, put in a second screen on the upper floor, and made it into a two-screen theater. This originally, with the balcony, before it was split, was the balcony. The balcony could watch whatever was playing on the big screen and on the stage.
That's correct. It was one screen theater most of its years.
So they put a wall now over. Is the wall that is upstairs over where the original stage was, or is it further set back?
It's further set back.
Okay, so this stage still has its full height.
That's right. Sure.
Okay. All right.
In the main auditorium, you can see that.
Okay. And that's the main auditorium right down here, right?
Yes.
How many dressing rooms were down here?
I don't really know.
Do you care if I go in there? We're in Paris, Texas to see the historic Grand Theater. Dating back to 1916, the Grand was the gold standard in early 20th century small-town entertainment. Our guide is local historian and theater expert Paul Denny.
This was the first portion of the theater that still needs some cleaning done. Mm-hmm. And there is some of the detailing that Mr. Gilbo did for Interstate Theaters on the acoustical mineral fiberboard surfacing that was added in the 30s. Then you can see right here, this is where the 1970s company added a little more depth before they rolled up to put the second screen upstairs in the twinned arrangement. Then as you walk here, you can see some of the painting on what used to be the organ chambers. And apparently in the early days of sound, they may have put some of their speaker clusters inside behind this room. But you can see the Art Deco style painting that Mr. Gilbo did. then you can get a sense of the high proscenium arch right up in there. You see the diamond motif, and that square diamond is the dead center of the high part of the proscenium arch. But in the 70s, they came in and put drop ceilings and the acoustical curtains and those kind of things. But the organ chambers used to be here and here. And then right here, you can see an opening.
The old stage at the Grand Theater was awesome, and right in the middle, in the front, there was a doorway that led under the stage. Now, in these rooms that are under the stage, there's all this old air conditioning equipment that was added in the 1930s. But before that, those rooms were the original dressing rooms that the vaudeville acts would use when they would come to town.
That's where the stairs were. It was just
wood over it. Mm-hmm. So the stairs are still under there?
They probably are.
Wow.
But it was only a dressing room in the 20s.
How many dressing rooms were down here?
I don't really know.
Do you care if I go in there? Paul was a little worried about letting me climb in under the old stage, so we got the best shots we could from the entrance of the old dressing room.
And there is the original asbestos curtain, one of them. But see, for that curtain to even still be there is amazing.
Yeah. Now, is that the curtain that would drop?
Yeah. That never gets cleaned, you know.
That's really. And once we were close to the stage, you could see even more of the Art Deco painting. And what would be here?
That is your office, where they ran the operation of the theater.
Oh, wow.
And to the left there is an old safe.
We went into this little side office, and around a corner in like a closet, there was this old safe. And the outer door was open, but the inside door was closed up tight. But Paul wasn't interested in trying to crack it. The old comment. Do you know how to listen for the clicks? Because I don't remember how to do that.
No, I don't.
I wonder if there's something in there. I mean, there's something you could listen for the clicks and
Really?
never know. You might find some old treasure in there.
Never know.
Look at there's another one. It's double. Well, it clicks all the way, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But anyway, the folks would run it from here, and then Mr. Musselman, when he was going, he'd have his own office.
So now, thanks to the changes that came along later, instead of it being just one big stage and one big theater, now they were able to show two movies here. So upstairs, there's an entirely second theater that you could go watch another movie in.
Yes.
Let's go see it.
All right.
Were different types of movies shown on the different floors, or were they just multiple showings of the same film, or how did that work?
It would probably be different shows. It was definitely in the 70s.
And what is all this?
That is under the balcony seating. This was the main staircase. We never had restrooms on the bottom floor, which won't pass muster today, but this is where the restrooms were.
The restrooms. Now, I got this thing. I had to check out the old bathrooms. I love old bathrooms.
Oh, yes. Looks like they removed some of the tiles, but not all of it.
Wow.
This was probably one of the most heavily used bathrooms in Paris, Texas. Yeah, that's a tough splash right there.
Yeah, it is. And then black toilet seats.
Yeah, these were later potties though. I missed the old kind with the bulge on the front of them, the trap on the front. And there's some in the projectionist room.
Check it out. Wait a minute, I think I see Sean Penn. Is that him? Or am I looking at Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? I don't know, but there's some old film for you right there. We're in Paris, Texas to see the historic Grand Theater. Dating back to 1916, the Grand was the gold standard in early 20th century small-town entertainment. Our guide is local historian and theater expert Paul Denning.
We're going up to the original balcony area, which was in later years was the second theater.
Oh, they left some things undone here.
Yes.
Check it out. Wait a minute, I think I see Sean Penn. Or am I looking at Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? I don't know, but there's some old film for you right there. That's a very cool thing to have. Another projection room up here.
That is the original projection room.
That's the original one.
Yes.
Oh, well, we have to see that.
Yes.
Oh, this is even better than the one downstairs.
Yes, it is. Look at this neat equipment.
We went into the old projector room, and I was amazed to find all of this equipment still there. Some of it dating back all the way to the 1930s, and it was still intact. Well, as much as can be expected for its age. You could bring the house lights up or down.
I'm assuming that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, and here's a rewinding device, and it's ready to go and be fixed up and used again. I would imagine in the early days this was unionized. The projectionist union probably required restroom facilities.
Oh, looky here.
And it's already private, so they didn't see any need.
Yeah, you don't have to get up
No.
and leave the projection room.
That was for the projectionist comfort and function. That's probably the sound equipment. When this theater was remodeled in the 30s, RCA put their newest photophone sound systems in here, and that was part of the volume control right there by your.
Okay.
But you can see RCA on it.
RCA, that is so cool. As we're wandering around through the theater, I kept noticing this staircase that went up to what looked like a third floor, and finally I just had to ask Paul if we could check it out. Do you mind if we check it out?
We certainly can.
Let's do. Wow. I don't think this part was touched with any of the renovations.
No, it sure was.
Yeah, wow.
This might have been a balcony entrance, I don't know.
On the third floor in the old storeroom were some of the old 1930s style seats that had been stored there. Also some old speakers, old cleaning supplies, just a ton of things that had been there since the place closed down. A lot of times when we go into a building and it's in the state that this building is in, it's kind of a sad thing because there's nothing being done for that place. But this is actually has a happy ending. This building will be restored. A lot of money's already been spent on this building, and you guys are planning to actually put this back and preserve this piece of history for Paris, Texas.
That is our goal, and we'll have to do it probably piecemeal.
The Grand Theater is a beautiful old theater in downtown Paris that's been abandoned for a long time. But the happy ending to all this is that there is a group of people, including Paul Denny, who are working very hard right now to bring the theater back. All right, well, I tell you what, it's been a lot of fun taking a look around the old Grand Theater, and thank you so much for taking time to show us around.
You're welcome.
When we go into an old building and we see it in the state that this building is in, it's kind of a sad thing because we're worried that. Let me start that over because I was a little freaked out. I thought a lizard was on my shoulder. It was a spider web. Okay, I'll just start over my part.